Hi, good day. I'm James Robertson. I want to talk to you today about the concept of executive custody with regard to ERP implementation, and then the concept of the strategic project leader in support of the chief executive in order to achieve a really high value ERP outcome. I understand that what I'm going to share with you may be perceived by some to be radical and overkill, but frankly, we're talking about something that is more capturing than a marriage. Because quite frankly, today, it's easier to get out of a marriage that's not working than it is to divorce your ERP. So you need to be looking at the procurement, the implementation, and the operation of your ERP as something that's at least a 20-year investment and that's got to perform really well for 20 years, that's going to make a difference to your business. And to do that, you've got to counter the reality that this is a lot of information that says that most people aren't getting what they hoped for out of their ERPs. So I'm going to take you through a presentation which is based on many, many years of experience. I've been down the road. I've seen what works, which is what doesn't work. I'm an engineer by training, so I'm programmed to prevent failure. I've seen a lot of failure with regard to ERP implementations. I've built up a catalog of why it happens and what's required to prevent it, and that's incorporated into my thinking. So I'm going to jump into this presentation now, and I hope that you find it informative. Right, so as I said, I'm going to talk about executive custody of your ERP project and the role of the strategic ERP project leader. And that's from the context of achieving a high value strategic ERP outcome. So just to kick off, ERP failure, something people don't want to talk about. A couple of weeks ago, I went on Google and searched for the percentage of ERP projects that do not deliver what was promised. And it returned, according to Gartner's, 55 to 75% of ERP projects either fail or don't meet their intended objectives. Now, that number of 75 has been around for probably at least 20 years. Some people have said it's 90, 95%. In my own experience, a very substantial number of ERP implementations do not deliver what was promised. The exact value of the number is less important than the fact that the number exists and it's such a big number. And we have to take it that Gartner is probably the most authoritative source when it comes to a statistic like that. If Gartner, with all of their magic quadrants, etc., is saying that that sort of level of substandard performance is common, you should be taking note. And as I said, it's a low estimate. My interpretation of the situation from what I've seen is that a lot of expectations are dumbed down. People are sort of saying, well, ERP is just an operational thing. It's not strategic. It's not really going to add much value. And then sloppy configuration and lack of strategic alignment are, in my opinion and my experience, the prime causes. And this is something that I can help you with. I see this role that I'm describing to you of ERP project leader, strategic ERP project leader, as being absolutely critical if you want to deliver a high value outcome. I've comprehensively documented the reasons for suboptimal outcomes, written a book about it, and developed solutions that deliver high value practical outcomes. And that's part of the value that I offer to you. And then to counter that, the ERP dream fulfilled which is to raise the strategic decision support value of the ERP investment to the maximum possible level. Quote, James, the auditors just left after 6 weeks. Last year, they were here for 6 months. They signed off the balance sheet without qualifications for the first time in 15 years. We have masses of management information. Profitability has improved, and we did it with one less bookkeeper. That project had myself as the strategic project leader. I did the position configuration. I did the cubic business model, and it was all correctly implemented with a high level of executive custody. And I can do that for you, and I can tell you what's required to do that. So why do I call it executive custody, and why do you need it? First of all, an ERP is a cross-cutting system. It touches all areas of the business. And the CEO owns that strategic, integrated, holistic, cross-cutting view. Only the CEO has authority to ensure that decisions are actioned across the organization. CEO sponsorship and custody of the ERP project and ERP operation is therefore vital. CEO executive custody is absolutely vital for a high-value ERP project outcome. Why do I suggest the strategic ERP project leader? That role is as a strategic advisor to the CEO. It runs throughout the ERP procurement, implementation, and commissioning. The CEO is the custodian of the overarching integrated holistic view of the organization, as I've just said, and must be the sponsor and custodian of the ERP. But the CEO lacks the time, knowledge, and experience of ERP to go it alone. The strategic ERP project leader provides the required support as a graybeard advising the CEO and the C-suite. It's a part-time role. It's not 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, but it involves a high level of engagement with the CEO and EXCO. It's a role I've defined and crafted over the years, and what I've seen repeatedly is where the client has enthusiastically embraced this role. We've had fantastic outcomes. And in other situations, excuse me, where the client has not embraced the role, things have gone not well at all, quite honestly. So what is the role of the strategic ERP project leader? To develop the strategic requirements and the strategic critical success factors with EXCO, possibly also factors for finance, operations, etc. Meet regularly with the CEO and EXCO, find high-level oversight and guide the project. This presentation sets out the rationale and the modus operandi. It's a facilitative role, not line or executive. It's delegated authority. I'm not asking you to make me an interim executive, although I've done that once or twice. And it's certainly an option. But it's not a full-time role. It's providing oversight to the rest of the project. It's proven in practice, and it delivers far greater value than any of the alternatives that I've come across. Myself, I'm a professional engineer, therefore I bring an engineering approach to ERP. I have a grounding in economics, and I've also got military experience, so exposure to the NATO fighting system. I commanded a regiment of over 500 unwilling conscripts at the rank of lieutenant colonel. First ERP I was involved with was built from scratch. I project managed and partially architected that. It was so successful that it became a commercial product. I've been consulting on my own for many years with my own methods and more than 1,000 hours of unremunerated research and development. I've written dozens of conference presentations. Let me rephrase that. I have presented dozens of conference presentations. I've written dozens of papers. I've presented a number of courses very frequently, all of which deal with ERP effectiveness. I have first-hand evidence that an ERP exceptionally well implemented creates substantial differentiated value, and I offer you thought leadership, and I claim to be a strategic thinker. Collectively, this experience underpins and provides a different and better approach to ERP implementation. So I'm the right person for your strategic project leader role, and I'd love to meet you and talk about it further. I want to stress leadership, not project management. The strategic project leader operates at a different level with the CEO versus the PM, who is basically operational. The strategic project leader focuses on the strategic 20% to deliver 80% of the value, whereas the project manager is focused on the 80% that delivers the operational outcome. There's too much for one person to do, first of all, and the precision configuration, which I'll talk about later, which is something that I do extremely well. That takes time, and there's not enough time to do both. And from bitter experience, I can tell you that the different focus between project management and strategic project leadership results in a conflict of priorities that doesn't work. It also results in a conflict of, for want of a better word, rank in the organization. So the project manager and the strategic project leader are two very distinct roles. Why do I say there has to be CEO sponsorship? Well, the CEO owns the integrated holistic view of the business. The ERP impacts every part of the business. It's cross-cutting. The CEO owns the integrated holistic cross-cutting view of the business. All other ExCo members are focused on their silos. Only the CEO has the authority over the entire organization. So CEO sponsorship is non-negotiable for a successful outcome. And then the strategic project leader facilitates the integrated holistic view. The SPL facilitates the holistic view. The SPL must report to the CEO. It's not negotiable. As the agent of the CEO with delegated authority from the CEO in a facilitative capacity. So the SPL speaks on behalf of the CEO, liaises closely with the CEO, and makes sure that they understand the priorities of the CEO and the emphasis of the CEO, and conversely, that the CEO has a clear view of the running of the project. As I said a minute ago, the SPL is a non-negotiable if you want a high-value outcome. And then I want to stress that the project manager is an operational role. PM is responsible for the detailed operational management of the project. They're seen by implementers and C-suite members as a mid-level manager, not a strategic executive. Project managers attempting to operate strategically results in role conflict, and most project managers can't do that anyway. And the project manager does not have recognized authority, even if they're drawing on the CIO. They're too far down in the chain of command. So I want to stress that the strategic project leader is not the project manager. How did I learn that the CEO executive custody was critical? The first ERP project I ever did, the CEO took custody. I had full support to guide and direct the project, and I had an open door to the CEO. The next two ERP projects, there was no CEO involvement at all, and they were both unmitigated disasters. The next ERP project, the sponsor was a major shareholder, an operational executive, and the chief financial officer, and it went extremely well, but there were still issues with the CEO, and I quoted that person's comments a few minutes ago, the outcome of that project. Various scenarios over the many years, I've investigated many failed and suboptimal projects. I've had my own share of projects that went well and also projects that didn't go well. Got a whole cupboard full of bloody t-shirts, to be quite honest. And I have done a couple of exceptional projects where there's been exceptional CEO custody. One case, which I'll share later, there was a 12% uplift in turnover overnight as a consequence of what I enabled the client to do, and that differentiated them from their competitors. So I've learned the hard way that CEO custody is vital, and with that, the strategic project leader role. So we're looking at top-down versus bottom-up design. Top-down must be strategy-focused, come from the CEO and the C-suite, and work down to the detail. If you start at the bottom with processes, etc., which are not the C-suite's area of interest, you can end up all over the place, as that diagram attempts to show, and quite frankly, most ERPs implementations look like that. So the role of the CEO, supported by the SPL together with precision configuration, is absolutely vital. And then I want to suggest for your consideration that ERP is a harsh judge of governance. Bad ERP decisions can wreck a business. An example there, a company that I did work for many years ago, implementation of one of the big brand ERPs by one of the big brand, big four, big five consultancies, unmitigated disaster. They had lost their biggest client, and the buzz in the market was that they were about to lose two more of their big clients. They were heading for the wall at a cracking pace. I did an investigation. I found absolutely ridiculous configuration. The implementers couldn't tell me why it was done the way it was done. And what's worse, they couldn't even tell me how to fix it. I advised the client in that specific case to go back to their previous ERP, which thankfully they were able to do. Not something that I would like to do, but in that case it was necessary. They were heading for the wall. They reckoned that within another couple of months they would be bankrupt. So ERP direction is a CEO responsibility. We're talking here about a 20-year plus investment, folks. There are not many things that the CEO can get involved with that you're going to pay dividends over 20 plus years. The ERP is not about technology, it's about strategic business support. The ERP is a collection of tools, and ad workmen blame their tools. So, folks, if you hear people complaining about the ERP, you need to ask who was the executive sponsor as a starting point. An ERP will harshly judge a CEO who abdicates responsibility. There's a huge opportunity for creative thinking to add value. So a strategic project leader supporting the CEO is absolutely vital. The CEO and Exco drive competitive advantage. A key responsibility of executives is innovation that will generate high bottom line value outcomes and materially raise profits. I'm talking strategic outcomes. Executives therefore define the role of ERP and competitive advantage. And I'd like to quote Professor Michael Porter. The greatest barriers to strategy are often self-imposed and many are internal. Strong leadership by the chief executive officer is almost a necessity if strategy is to be created and implemented. The only thing I would disagree with there is I'm not sure about almost. In my experience, it's always a necessity. So we're looking for a high value outcome. And what does that look like? Comprehensive precision configuration. And I'll explain what I mean there in a few minutes. Systems integrated at the data level. System operational efficiency and precision. Systematic alignment of operational systems. Integrated holistic business operation. Comprehensive management information with full drill down. And then most importantly, comprehensive strategic analysis and decision support capability, which in my experience is 80% of the value that you should be looking for, which happens to be the value that most implementations partly or fully do not deliver on. So part of my responsibility as a strategic project leader is to bring that insight and help you to achieve that. So some techniques. What I like to do is I stick my head around the door of the CEO at the start and end of every day on site. When I'm not on site, a quick Zoom call or a Teams or a phone call with the CEO to keep in touch with what's going on. I like to copy the CEO with all emails, set them up with a separate email folder in Outlook or their whatever email client they're using. And they only read if the email is addressed to them personally, else they just skim the subject line and drill down where relevant. I like to do a weekly one-on-one with the CEO, a 1-hour meeting, review progress, address queries, etc., and if necessary, a phone call or a quick ad hoc meeting in between. The CEO and myself must be tight, closely aligned. The CEO chairs the weekly project meeting, although they may delegate that to me, but the CEO must be in the room. The CEO chairs the monthly project board meetings supported by myself. Periodic detailed walkthroughs with all relevant execs and managers. And I want to stress the SPL is not an administrator. He or she is a strategic advisor. The administration of the project is the role of the project manager or the project office or the project administrator, depending on the size of the project and the size of the client organization. And to be quite honest, if the CEO cannot see themselves doing the things above, then I would suggest you check the business case for a new ERP. Maybe you just need to revamp your existing ERP, because if you can't get that sort of level of involvement from the CEO, at best you're going to get a mediocre outcome and you might get a total failure. You know, and I can be as good as I like to think that I am, but I can't win swimming against a torrent going in the wrong direction. So the CEO, to sum up, the CEO owns the strategic helicopter view. CEO custody is therefore not negotiable. Only the CEO can kick butt to get all working together. Executive intelligence out requires executive intelligence in, and only the CEO has the complete picture. Not a lot of work, it's working clever. The magnitude of the investment warrants the time investment, and the scale of the downside risk warrants the time investment. So a strategic project leader to facilitate and to take as much pressure off the CEO as possible is essential. So I keep using this word strategy. What do I mean by strategy? And many years ago, I wrote a paper on the importance of aligning ERP with business strategy, and then I found I couldn't define strategy. So I started researching, and I came across the work of Professor Malcolm MacDonald, who says that strategy is doing the right things viewed from the customer's perspective, and tactics is doing things right viewed from the customer's perspective. Malcolm says, if you do the right things well, your organization will thrive, and that's where my logo comes from. He says, if you do the right things not so well, your organization will survive, but if you do the wrong things, your organization will die. It's a matter of how quickly. And the better you get at doing the wrong things, the faster your organization will die. And the example I just gave you of the chemicals distribution company was a classic example of doing the wrong things really well with the ERP. So our goal is to thrive by doing the right things well with ERP, and I submit for your consideration that the Strategic ERP Project Leader role is absolutely key to that. And then going on with the question, what is strategy? Professor Michael Porter from Harvard Business School. Strategy is the creation of a unique and valuable position involving a different set of activities. Strategy is making trade-offs in competing and choosing what not to do. Create competitive advantage, differentiation. The essence of strategy is integration, the ability to see in a complex, holistic way. Technology is not strategy. So I've been creating competitive advantage with IT for decades. The first company I ever did it for, I doubled their turnover in 12 months as a consequence of enabling them to do something their competitors couldn't do. Another definition, Dr. Michel Robert of Decision Processes International. Every organization has a single strategic driving force that determines what it does and how it succeeds. It is one of product, user, market, technology, know-how, production capacity, production capability, sales, marketing method, distribution, natural resources, size, growth, profit. A clear definition of driving force and strategy is vital. It informs the whole project, and therefore, again, the SPL role is vital. After many years of research and practical application and learning, I coined the following definition of strategy. It's the essence of why the organization exists and how it thrives. It's generally intuited by the founders. It's discovered, it's not invented, and it virtually never changes. And on that last point, all the gentlemen that I've just cited will agree with me that strategy very, very infrequently changes. And if you try and change the strategy of the organization, there's a very good possibility that something is going to get seriously, seriously broken. So strategy is a holistic, integrated picture of how the entire organization fits together and interoperates with the external environment to produce a thrive outcome. My definition after years of exploring, investigating, facilitating, diagnosing CEO is the above, and the CEO is the custodian of this view of the organization. One of the things that I will do if you appoint me is I will kick off a set of initial interviews with each of yourself, with the CEO and with each of the C-suite, and pose the question, what's the essence of this organization and how does it thrive? And at the end of that, I'll synthesize that, I'll feed it back to you. You may know it, but what I've found interestingly enough is most of the times that I've interviewed execs and asked them that question, they sort of scratch their heads and say, well, nobody's ever asked me that before. And I have to coach them and prompt them. But generally, after a bit of discussion, it coalesces around a very clear statement of why the organization exists and how it thrives. And frankly, if you're an executive and you don't know the answer to that question, what can I say? So let's look at the time dependency of strategy. I want to start by saying it's not a forecast. You need a forecast to formulate a strategic plan, but it is not a strategy. It's also not an objective. You need strategic goals, but setting strategic goals is also not strategy. So a strategic plan is in fact the path to competitive advantage, and it follows a realistic trajectory of continuous business improvement within business constraints, the red line that you see there. So it's an exponential curve like the catenary of that bridge in the photograph there. So you do a whole lot of things today to bring about beneficial change tomorrow. And as a case study, real life situation from good to great by Jim Collins, reporting the outcome of Gillette, which went from being a manufacturer of pretty unexciting men's razors to the rather spectacular range of products that they sell today. And what you see there is the growth of the share price on the New York Stock Exchange, and the red line is the red line off the previous slide, which fits perfectly and evidences that strategic growth follows an exponential curve. Mockler did a whole lot of things at the beginning there that resulted in that spectacular outcome. So to summarize, start the project with strategic discovery, the essence of the business. It should be agreed to and understood by all. You need strategic facilitation to translate that into actions. It's a concise, simple statement that guides everything else, how the organization thrives. It's not complex. Ask the right questions, make the right decisions. It informs every facet of the organization. It brings clear understanding and documentation of the strategic essence as being absolutely paramount. And again, I will facilitate. So the true strategic focus is to put the right things from the customer's perspective, how to differentiate strategic driving force, the essence of the organization and how it thrives, enhance the right things, minimize the wrong things. Clear facilitation, vital. Some vital considerations. The SPL guides the entire project. The SPL is focused on the 20% of requirement that drives 80% of the strategic value, differentiation, profitability. There are vital principles that must be applied. He provides or she provides a consolidated view based on decades of experience. You need a grey beard, to be honest, or a grey head, or a white head, or whatever you want to call it, looking at my photo. And I'd be delighted to do this for your organization. So I've made reference previously to an engineering approach, so I'd like to define what I mean by that. What is an engineering approach to ERP? Many years ago, looking back on my engineering training and my early practical engineering experience, I concluded that engineers do not design bridges to stand up. They design them not to fall down, and that's why this event in Minneapolis in 2007 made almost instantaneous headlines around the world. Engineers design bridges not to fall down, and it's a very uncommon thing for a bridge to fall down. It's a very uncommon thing for an airplane to drop out of the sky, and it's generally human error. It's very uncommon for buildings to fall down, and generally if it does, it's a design flaw or an earthquake. Sadly, one can't say the same for ERP implementations. So what do I mean about an engineering approach? You design against failure. You critically examine everything. There are no sacred cows. There's no mythology. You have a robust, rigorous procurement approach and a robust contract with the implementer, which puts the onus on them to make sure that they deliver. You need a business. The business understands the organization at a mature level, but they have to learn the ERP. And the implementers understand the ERP at a mature level, have to learn the business. Of course, that assumes that contractually you make sure that the ERP team, the implementer team, is made up of mature, experienced consultants who really know the ERP well, and they don't give you the C team who've been working with them for a year. You want to mobilize senior, mature, experienced team members on both sides. You don't give this to the younger managers, etc. You give it to the people who've been with the business as long as possible. There has to be high levels of accountability on both sides, and there has to be precision. The implementers must understand that if something goes wrong, you're going to call them to account, and your team needs to understand that they are also going to be held accountable if things go wrong. And the strong strategic project leader with strong engineering bias and a high level of technical understanding, which is what I offer you, is, I suggest, important. So we want ERP projects that are engineered not to fail. Most CEOs know where they want to take the ERP, but they don't know how to get there. As a civil engineer and former military commander, I've applied engineering principles to ERP procurement, configuration, and implementation for very many years. So let's talk a little bit about failure and success, because I started off introducing that topic. So one of the services that I offer is something that I call a pulse measurement, where I investigate suboptimal ERP installations for clients. It's a concise diagnostic intervention that takes from 1 to 10 days. Starts off with executive interviews, understand the essence, the critical concerns, and the critical success factors, drill down to the systems. The end result is a short letter report of roughly 7 bullet point findings, weighted in terms of relative importance, in terms of my opinion, and plus minus 7 recommended actions, also weighted in terms of relative importance, in terms of action by the client. The findings are frequently so practical that the client can continue unaided. I've done dozens of pulse measurements, and that's given me a deep understanding of what really matters and what causes these problems. So much so that some years ago, I wrote the book, The Critical Factors for Information Technology Investment Success. And as a result of that, I put together a series of briefings and courses, why your ERP is not delivering and how to fix it, ERP in strategic and competitive management, the critical factors for ERP investment success. And I've been teaching and applying these principles for years, such that understanding these principles is ingrained. And many clients have become clients. Many delegates have become clients. Frankly, you're going to battle to find anybody else who is as well steeped in these principles as I am. So a few pulse measurement clients, which you, for the most part, won't recognize. They're all South African companies. As you've probably picked up from my accent, I'm originally from South Africa, been in the UK for almost 12 years. And why don't I have UK clients? Because I didn't understand when I moved to the UK that my line of business is passed mainly on a referral basis. And so I've been doing other things, including chief operating officer of an outsourcing company for quite a few years. But I've been back consulting on my own for going on 2 years now, and starting to pick up a few clients on the project space. But some of these are fairly big names. You can find most of those companies on the internet today. And by the way, the things that I'm talking about are pretty much perennial. Dealing with strategy, they're dealing with the way people think, the way people make decisions, etc. So out of those pulse measurements, I came up with 7 critical factors causing ERP failure, of which the second biggest factor is inappropriate or into executive custody at 19% of what causes failure. And the critical factors for success, and I'm not going to go into the detail, it's not relevant to this conversation, but the top one is 22% for effective executive custody and governance. So it's really important that your organization gets this right, and I can help you with that. A little bit of theory, the diffusion of innovation. We've got a mix of business competence, knowledge, and experience of the business team. We've got technology competence, knowledge, and experience of the implementer team, and those have to be gelled together. We have personality profiles and related human traits, which can make things a whole lot more complicated. In the process of the project, we first develop solution knowledge, and then we develop, hopefully, solution experience before we go live, and I'll talk about the laboratory in a few minutes. And then there's communication, and the graph in front of you shows the diffusion of innovation. It's a widely accepted marketing thing. And it relates to how you communicate the message about your ERP to all the people in your business, to all the users. And there are other human factors. I've written a fairly weighty document on the critical human foundation for ERP implementation success. And you're welcome to a copy if you drop me a line and I'll send it to you. It's also on my LinkedIn profile. So the CEO, supported by the strategic project leader, guides the overall outcome, and there needs to be intense ongoing communication from the top down in order to get the message. And that means there needs to be repetition and reinforcement, folks, and there's a whole body of knowledge there. And then critical business differentiators, management of the human resource, market-focused strategy, strategic decision-making, strategically configured business information systems, and overall strategic capability. The ability to visualize a future business status and to get there. And virtually no one is getting any of these right in terms of what is truly possible with ERP. Strategic capability is a fundamental requirement. And that list there, by the way, is fairly general. You'll probably find it on the internet. I haven't looked. It's not just related to ERP. It's relating to differentiation of business. And if you're not doing all of those, you're probably not doing all that well in business anyway. So it's important for the SPL to understand and integrate that into the project design. And then the theoretical focus areas of executives, creating and delivering value to customers, differentiating from competition, motivating and leading personnel, meeting and exceeding owner expectations, building exceptional partnerships with suppliers, integrating and optimizing the business, and then, by the way, day-to-day operational efficiency and effectiveness, which, according to some opinions, should not be more than about 5% of how execs spend their time. They should spend their time on the first points there that are in blue. There's a body of opinion which says that that doesn't happen too often in practice, that most execs kind of bring the day-to-day stuff with them into the executive suite and spend far too much time on that. And part of doing what I'm talking about is that your executive team needs to reprioritize and delegate such that they can spend enough time thinking and doing strategically to make sure that the ERP implementation goes really well. So the SPL needs to understand that and integrate it into the project design in consultation with the CEO. In terms of approach, achieving executive custody, the components of achieving executive custody based on years of experience, CEO and EXCO engage, provide leadership, the team proves that it works, and the CEO says, make it work. I had a classic experience of this some years ago with a fairly large manufacturing and distribution client in the chemical space, not the same one that I spoke about a minute ago. And I did the firm had recently implemented a new ERP. It had not gone at all well. There was a broad-based view across the business that they should trash it and start again. I was brought in to evaluate. I did an in-depth evaluation, produced about a 100-page report specifying everything that needed to be fixed in order to remediate the system and get it performing the way that they needed to perform. And I then facilitated a 2-day workshop with the EXCO, where we went through a series of processes, the end result of which was that we clearly established that everybody understood that they were not putting their backs into making the system work, that the system could work. And at lunchtime on the second day, I took the CEO aside and I said, look, you can see what's going on here. The system can work, but there's a lack of resolve to make it work. So this is not the real guy, but this posture is real. After lunch, he got up and he said, gentlemen, I think you can all see what the problem is. We're not making the effort we should be to making this thing work. So I'm now going to say to you, I don't want to hear another chirp that this is the wrong system. Make it work. And there's a point at which, if the job has been done properly, the CEO needs to take that stance if there's pushback from the business. In terms of governance, CEO leadership and direction is vital. I keep saying that, folks, I can't stress it enough. The SPL without a strategic planning workshop without the CEO is not a strategic planning workshop. Executive time impacts must be taken into account, but that includes appropriate delegation, requires a mature and experienced SPL, executive ownership is vital, and I've probably overstated that. Well, not overstated, but I've said it enough times. Executive custody and alignment, I'm not going to go into this in detail. Strategic analysis with EXCO, the strategic process, critical concerns with regard to the ERP project, which will give rise to core strategic objectives for the project, critical strategic requirements for the ERP project, critical success factors, and then possibly one or more further workshops with major divisions like manufacturing, operations, finance, etc., all agreed with the CEO. This should kick off the project right at the beginning, set the strategic direction, and ensure that the leadership are all on the same page. Many, many years ago, I realized that there was a lack of robust methods and tools for doing strategic planning. And so I developed a suite of tools and method, drawing on what I learned from Professor MacDonald's XMAR process, which has subsequently been endorsed by Malcolm, also informed by Michel Robert's work and Professor Porter's work, and synthesizing that together with my engineering and military quick attack training to focus on the strategic 20% and move fast to capture the objective of an excellent outcome. There's a link there to my Strategy Doctor website if you're interested. The testimonial from Professor MacDonald, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically what he says is he endorses my methods. He regards them as highly successful and highly effective. Malcolm is a real authority on strategy. He's retired now. I think he's 87. I have lunch with him now and again. We've become reasonable friends. And he's been extremely complimentary about my work. So I really believe that I can make a difference to your organization. Why 7 factors? Miller's Law, Wikipedia. I'm not going to go into detail there. This is a shot of the tool, weight and score the relative priorities of the team and have a discussion about them. What you find is that the different disciplines within the business have different views of the business, and that's absolutely acceptable. I explain that by referring to mountains, where the climbing to the top of the mountain is the strategic objective, and it's real that production, operations, marketing, etc., all see the business differently, but it's not helpful that when your goal is to get to the top of the mountain, whatever the top of the mountain is, whatever your strategic objective is, in this case, successful implementation of ERP, if every department climbs the mountain down their own route. So it's vital, and the process that I've just touched on will give you a clear view of what the priorities are going forward, and that then needs to be carried forward into the project. That allows you to determine your objectives and your strategic trajectory, which gives you a strategic gap. You can then produce weighted gaps. So you focus on the 20% of the gaps that will give you 80% of the value. You map out a set of projects to close those gaps, and obviously in this case a big project is the ERP implementation, but there'll be different components to that. I'm going to go for a bit faster now. I think I've laid the foundation, and so I'm just going to speed up. If you'll bear with me, if you want more detail, we can always discuss. That allows us to analyze the actions that will bring the biggest benefit, Pareto type analysis. I want to talk a bit about precision configuration, and that's a whole presentation in its own right. It's something that I strongly advocate, and it's something that I would bring as an SPL. But and as I've said, I've got thousands of hours of experience there. But really, it's a conversation for another session. So if we look at computers versus people, computers process information, people interpret, act, interpret, take decisions, and act. The goal is to get the right information to the right person at the right time in order to make the right decision, in order to thrive. I can help you to do that. You've seen client testimonial of that, complexity versus KISS. The business is complex. You need to model the real complexity. And one of the problems that you have is so many times that doesn't happen. And that's a big reason why ERPs don't deliver what was promised. Evaluating ERP value, you want comprehensive, high value strategic decision making. Unlocking value, you want to be able to produce really sophisticated reports, graphs, dashboards, etc. And you can only really do what we're talking about here with really good data. And I'm talking about a level of precision that most people don't understand is possible. And that, as I say, is a whole subsequent presentation and discussion. So the creation of value ultimately answers to the questions I've not yet thought to ask. If you get a question now and you can't get an answer to that question within minutes or certainly within hours out of your ERP, your business intelligence system or whatever, then I suggest for your consideration there's a problem. So if you're not getting that out of your present system, well, you need to be worried. And if you are getting it, well, then you probably shouldn't be changing. The precision configuration is making the system look intelligent because you've got intelligence in the data. And the challenge of BI and data warehousing, ETL, today is that most of the time they're unscrambling spaghetti. What do I mean? large South African or global mining company. You would recognize the name if I told you. Interviewing the chief executive. I said, on a score of 0 to 10, how would you rate your systems? He said, well, at an operational level, I'd give them 7 or 8 out of 10. SAP is working and the business is running well. At an executive level, I'd give it 1 to 3 out of 10, and I only give it a 3 because I have excellent people gathering and processing the information. I need the system themselves 1 out of 10. And there's the chart of accounts. You see the top red circle there, plant spares in amongst things like elements, whatever those are, crucibles and cupolas, engineering spares, and down the bottom you've got foodstuffs. There's absolute lack of hierarchy, difficult to write even a simple report. Somebody adds something, things are broken. It's plant spares is a massive bin. It's just really sloppy, and I could go into detail and tear that apart. The SAP material group, similar lack of structure, repetition, different codes, same description. So people are going to post wherever people find to post. It's a mess. And so the interesting thing about it was that particular company, SAP, had a big billboard on the main road between Johannesburg and Pretoria, which said that name of company runs SAP, with a byline of the best run businesses run SAP. There were 4 senior accountants, but a senior, I mean high-end company cars and big executive officers who spent 3 weeks a month to produce the board pack with huge complex spreadsheets and all sorts of people providing information. And they could not get the information they needed from SAP, including the SAP data warehouse and associate BI. It was a terrible configuration. But the irony was I'd been brought in by the CIO, who was really the IT manager, because he didn't report to the CEO, he reported to the CFO. And when he took me to the CFO to report my findings, I noticed after a couple of minutes that I'd completely lost the CFO. I realized with a sort of slap in the chops that if he did what I was recommending, he would lose his entire empire. Just a little taste of what I'm talking about, a very simple example, credit note reason codes, no structure, no logic there, and an example here of what I produced, which would allow the client to answer every possible question relating to credit notes. And I'm talking about the same sort of logic and structure in everything, chart of accounts, item class, etc., etc. Key part of the solution is what I call the cubic business model, which is implicit in every ERP, every financial system, but not widely and accurately implemented. Every organization has locations where they do what they do and functions what they do. And you can put that on a matrix. And if you set that up very meticulously and very precisely, you can do amazing things with it. Just an example of a financial report. At the top, you've got the stuff coming out of the general ledger directly, and down below, you've got the redistribution of a whole range of overheads. So to sum up on precision configuration, it's built on the strategic executive view of the business, and it allows you to do amazing things. I gave you the example of the one case earlier on. Implemented kudos. Of one case, I locked horns with an implementer who didn't like what I was doing, didn't understand what I was doing, because what I was doing didn't follow textbook at all. But I've been brought in because his project had failed. And subsequently, he said, you know what you've done makes a lot of sense. And he started doing it himself, as he says in this testimonial, so much so that subsequently he subcontracted me on a number of occasions to do cubic business models for some big customers. A few other points. Soft issues and change impacts. Folks, when you bring about change, if you do the job properly, some people are going to lose their jobs, but you don't do it to reduce the headcount. You do it to give you better strategic intelligence. And it just happens that in the process, you drop off some people. But if you're not careful, people who are going to lose their jobs are not going to help you, and you need to handle that sensitively. It's laboratory I don't like the term user acceptance testing. I like the laboratory, the war games. You try to break it until you can't break it anymore. And then you set up and get everything working absolutely perfectly, train every single member of staff. So when they wake up in the morning of go live, they say, oh, yes, that's the thing that we've been playing with in the laboratory, know exactly what to do. Don't allow technology to become the issue, and I can help you avoid that. There's a whole tendency to go for gimmick. And if you are thinking of leaving your project to be run by the CIO or the IT manager, beware, because they are too technology focused a lot of the time. Remember that value is determined by people using the tech, not the tech itself. And so you don't necessarily want to put too much emphasis on the tech. Make sure you choose the right system, and then make sure you implement it really well, which is all about people. It's not about tech. Recap of what I shared at the beginning: dramatic benefits. Company went on to thrive, more and more profitable, and it's possible that I can do it for you. In terms of procurement, I've developed very robust procurement techniques, same level of sophistication, etc., that I'm talking about in every other area, working with the CEO. Procurement requirements, got a proven tender pack of standard documents and spreadsheets, really tough, rigorous request for proposal document, which closes all the loopholes, a process which will take you through casting the net wide, narrowing down onto the preferred software, selecting the preferred implementer, and then forming a relationship with them before you sign the contract. And it's a tough contract that really looks after your interests, modeled on the civil engineering tender process. As I say, proven document pack. You can see all the documents there. I'm not going to go through it right now. I've got a separate presentation if you're interested. Tough RFP, table of contents there, constrains the bidders in a variety of ways. Produces a fairly sizable document pack, as you can see in that photo. And as I say, I've got a separate presentation on that. So to sum up, the ERP is transversal. It impacts every area of the organization. The CEO is the custodian of the integrated holistic view of the organization. Therefore, CEO custody and sponsorship is critical. The CEO has limited time and mostly limited experience, so the strategic ERP project leader in support of the CEO is absolutely vital. The SPL must have a depth of strategic executive level experience and wisdom. I've run an organization of 500 men. I've been consulting at the executive level for my entire professional career. I'm comfortable in the C-suite. I'm comfortable with the CEO. I speak your language, and I will demystify IT and ERP for you. I claim to be a thought leader, and I claim that I will help you to align your ERP with the essence of the business, the strategy, which is how we will add really, really significant value. And I welcome the opportunity to meet with you in person and to discuss further how I can assist you. In terms of action, if you do not act on a new idea within 48 hours, you probably never will, according to Bill Gates. So what is your single most important insight from this presentation? And what is the single most practical action that you can take tomorrow to apply ERP more effectively? I ask you to write down your thoughts. Obviously, this is a video, so no point in me waiting for you. You might want to pause the video now for a moment. Just in dedication, thanks to a whole bunch of people who've helped me to develop this knowledge and experience, my mom and dad who set the foundation for this. And any questions? And again, I realize that this is a video, so you can't ask me questions, but please, I would encourage you. My email address, my phone number are there, my LinkedIn profile. Please message me however is convenient to you. Happy to get on a Zoom or Teams call with you and discuss your requirements in more detail so that I can give you a proposal for an initial scoping investigation. That's all for now. Thank you for listening. I know this has taken just about an hour, and I hope you stayed on for the hour. because I hope it's really got your attention. And I would really like to hear from you and really like to have a discussion. I prefer face-to-face. I'm happy to travel pretty much anywhere in the UK to meet with you. If you want to do it online on Zoom or Teams, I'm very, very happy to do that as well. If you're not in the UK, well, I guess we'll have to do it on Zoom or Teams. But if it's necessary for the project for me to come and relocate to your environment for a year or two, I wouldn't rule that out as a possibility. So I hope you found that interesting. I'm hoping that if I can put it so boldly, that I've rattled your cage a bit and challenged your paradigm. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks so much. Bye.